Question, are you an older worker looking to get back in the job market and looking for work? Are you 50 plus? If so, I have 7 hacks, must know hacks to help you with your job search. Guaranteed. I have been a career advisor for over 20 plus years, and I have a lot of great information to share with you. So, 7 hacks to help you with your job search. All right? So, here we go. Number 1, modernize your resume. Modernize your resume, meaning don't use old terms like references available upon request. Guess what? They know that if they request the references, you're going to provide them. You don't need to say that. Words like, I'm a team player. So now in 2025 and beyond, you're going to have to determine what is the appropriate or the vocabulary, the contemporary vocabulary, or the wording that you would use in your resume. Because if you use certain words like team player, references available upon request, using emails with AOL and Hotmail, they know right away you're an older worker and you've been out of the loop and you may be fossilized. What does fossilized mean? Meaning stuck in the past. And if you're applying for jobs in this day and time, they're not looking, employers do not want anybody who is stuck in the past. So you want to definitely modernize your resume. Your resume may be reviewed by a person, a real live human being, or it may be read by an ATS system. What is that? You might ask. An ATS system? I never heard of that. Well, you're going to hear of it now. It is an applicant, ATS stands for applicant, ATS, applicant tracking system. It means that your resume will be reviewed by a computer. And they've been doing this for quite a while. And essentially what that computer has been programmed for is to look for key, K-E-Y, key words, relevant words that are related to the actual position. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means when you create your resume, it cannot be a one-size-fits-all. In other words, you cannot create one resume and think it's going to work for all the different types of jobs you'll be applying for. That's not going to work. You're going to have to create resumes, a different resume for each position you're applying for. You're going to have to define it according to what that position is, the position description is seeking or is stated. I hope that makes sense. You're going to be using keywords that you're going to pull out of the actual job description. You're not going to use words you're not going to write sentences verbatim. But first of all, you want to make a determination if that position is if you have the skill set for that position, and if you're interested in the position. So before you get excited and start revising your resume, read over that job description from top to bottom, all in between, and make sure before you put all that hard work into creating a resume that this is a position, if they called you for an interview, that you would indeed be qualified for and interested in pursuing. So make sure your resume is up to date, and there's a lot of tools available for you to be able to make sure your resume is up to date. There's one called TEAL, T-E-A-L, and there's a number of them. One is called JobScan, J-O-B-S-C-A-N, and then there's other ones too. You can actually go online and look for services that will, and doesn't cost you much, and may not cost you anything, that will actually review your resume, because your resume has to be top notch. Okay, so also another hack, well, number 2, you want to become familiar with Zoom, Slack, and Google Workspace. Now, the reason why they're saying, is I'm suggesting that you become familiar or learn those tools is because a lot of employers are using them. So Zoom They may not even, if they're interested in you, the employer, prospective employer, he or she may not even call you physically in. They may say, let's set up a Zoom, meaning that's online. So, okay, Zoom. I've had Zoom interviews where my technology is failing me. What do I do? Oh, well, the Zoom call is here. The person is saying, hello, Maria, are you there? And I'm like, well, I can't see you. I can't hear you. Or they're saying, I can't hear you. I can't see you. And then you're going to be panicking because you prepare for this interview and you're doing it online through Zoom or whatever. And it's not, the technology, and you're not savvy enough to be able, it might be a quick fix. But so word to the wise is get familiar with Zoom. Another one is Slack. A lot of employers use that. And of course, Google Workspace is huge. Google Workspace is a very powerful tool, but there is a learning curve. So in order to be up to date and contemporary, those are just some suggestions. Another one is learning as being on LinkedIn, because some employers, prospective employers, will actually go to LinkedIn and go online and search your name and look to see where how you show up online. And if you're looking for work and you're serious, you should have a LinkedIn profile and make sure that your photo on the LinkedIn profile is professional. You're not there with your dog and your grandchildren, because you are an older worker. You may have grandchildren. I don't know. You're not there with your husband or your wife or your partner. You are there, and it's a little snapshot of yourself, and you want to make sure that it is professional. Okay, because that will say a lot, speak volumes to an employer. All right, moving right along, you want to use keyword-rich headings on your resume. So these are the headings that you actually have on your resume. And when you say keyword-rich, pardon me, you're going to get those wordings from the actual job description. So before you start writing a resume, you want to be able to, pardon me, got a little tickle in my throat. Excuse me. You want to be able to identify all of the keywords in the job description. What I suggest you do is get a highlighter or two. I love highlighters. And go through the job description and look for keywords. And these are keywords that you're going to use when you're developing your resume. So if they do happen to use an applicant tracking system, all your keywords are going to show up that are relevant to the position. And even if an individual is looking at it, they're going to be looking for keywords as well. Okay, so we're good. Moving right along to hack number 4, and that is be sure and showcase your experience and how your experience has helped to solve problems. Now, one thing you can do, what I suggest you do, is to quantify your experience. In other words, if you were a team leader, how many people did you lead? If you were an accountant, how much money did you handle? So you're giving that prospective and employer a pretty good idea of what you've done to solve problems. Not just I worked in customer service, I handled cash, I worked with a team. No, you want to be very definitive so that they can see exactly what you have done. So it's a bit of a challenge because you still have to be brief. You can't go on and on and on and on and on. So you have to be brief, and that's why you may need some assistance with developing a really top-notch, up-to-date professional resume. Now, the other thing I want to say in terms of a hack, don't, as my dad would say, don't shoot yourself in the foot by by going back too far. Now, I have to admit, when I first started, this was a number of years ago when I was creating a resume, I was putting the number of years I had actually worked on a particular job. Well, guess what? It doesn't take rocket science to figure out, well, if you worked there for, whatever X number of years, and you're putting down 2, when you graduated from college, the year you graduated from college, and so on and so forth. They start calculating, and then you can run into age discrimination, which means they may not, they're not going to say it to your face, but they can look at the resume and say, this person, this is a mature worker, older worker. We're not really looking for anybody. They're not going to say it out loud because that's discrimination. But when you start adding dates or going back too far, 25 years at Bank of America, 25 years, and the person interviewing you may be 28 years old, maybe young enough to be your child if you had children. That's the truth. That's the truth these days. So you definitely don't want to go back. I usually say, I usually try to stay away from the years in terms of saying how many years. I usually just let them know that I have, considerable number of years. I can't think of the exact wording now, but you can think of the wording, meaning you have, I wish I could think of extensive experience or something like that, but not where you start giving dates and going back too far, and then they can start calculating, and then you can be you can't age bias does exist, okay, and you don't want to be giving them that on a silver platter because you have said I was working for Bank of America for 35 years, and then I graduated from college in 1962, and then they're like, okay, next. You don't want that to be the case, especially if you're sharp, you have good skills, you've updated, all this software and all of this, so you don't want to date yourself, all right, and be your own worst enemy. All right, we're almost there with the hacks. We're on number 6. Connect with, do some networking. People that you used to work with, who you had a good relationship with, they know your work, connect with them, find out if they know of anybody hiring. Also, you can use them for references, but let them know, make sure you get permission from them so they can say good things about you. So make your connections to determine whether or not they're aware of any positions, and also find some key individuals that you can use for references, because employers oftentimes will actually call references to check and see, check on, your work history and your work ethics and so on and so forth. So you want to don't burn bridges once you leave a job and never be in touch with individuals that you had a great relationship with. I actually contacted a supervisor that I work with, and I was thinking, I worked with her 11 years ago. I contacted her just the other day because I was thinking about her, and a young man I used to, well, he's not so young anymore, but a man I worked with before, and I had a great relationship with him, and I've been thinking about him, and I contacted my former supervisor because I don't see him on the company photo anymore, from where we used to work together, and I asked her, Myra, I texted her and I said, well, what happened to Glenn? And she said, oh, he's working in San Francisco and he's doing good and all. I said, yeah, I've been thinking about him. Now, she got back to me right away, and she's a director and she's super busy. But because we still have a great relationship, I know, if she would give me a great reference, I can contact her anytime because I didn't burn bridges. Definitely don't want to burn bridges. And then also, there is a way that you can, and I wasn't familiar with this until I did a little bit of research. There are programs called, let me make sure I get it right. I'm looking at my little cheat sheet. Returnship or encore programs. Some employers actually have that, and I see where they said Amazon has it and some other companies, meaning that individuals have retired or are, they're no longer working, they're retirement age, but they want to get back in the workforce for various reasons. And people can want to get back in the workforce not just for money. I used to love, I wasn't the big social butterfly in the office, but I did love meeting, because some of the people I met were really pretty awesome, and I love to stay in touch with them. And once you retire and you're sitting at home, just missing all that socialization and being able to connect with community outside of your where you live, but on the job, you may want to get back to work for that, even if your finances are good. But on the other hand, you may want to go back to work because you want to tighten up your finances and enhance your finances. So lastly, you want to, on the resume, you want to be able to let that employer know that you are tech savvy. Like I will say something in my cover letter about my computer skills and anything else I can say to let them know that I am up to date. So you're not going to hire me and find out that I don't have, I don't even have the capability. I'm scared. I actually know someone, I'm not going to call names, who uh, told me that where she lives, they want the tenants to use the portal in order to pay their rent. And, that's pretty commonplace now. They're walking in with a check or a money order is old school. And she said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to use the portal. I don't really want to use the computer. And I go to the post office and get a money order, or with the bank and get a certified check. And some employers, some businesses, like where, a company I deal with, you can't come in the office anymore. So you're going to have to go on the computer. So if you're looking to get back in the workforce, you have to get comfortable with the computer. Everything is on the computer. Apps are on the computer. I had a job recently, and I'm pretty savvy, but I have an Android phone, but they gave me another phone, an iPhone. I hadn't used an iPhone before. Every app for that company that I needed to use was on that iPhone, and I had to quick, fast, and in a hurry. It was a little bit of a learning curve, but I didn't want to be the one saying, well, would you, I can't do this because I never used, I wasn't familiar with it, but I said, you know what, I'm going to get familiar with it, and I did, So you have to make sure that you're not thinking, I can't do it, I can't learn. You can learn. We're older, but we can learn. You don't want to fall into that perception of being an older worker and stuck in our ways, and I've never done this before like this, and I can't learn the computer. Why everything got to be on the computer? Well, it is. It is what it is. All right. So hopefully these hacks have been helpful for you. And if you have any questions, by the way, subscribe. And if you have comments, I love to get a comment from you. Let me know where you are in your job search journey. If you have any questions about your job search, I'll be happy to respond. And let me know how you like the video. And my name is Maria. And anything I can do to help you, like I said, I have years of experience with career advising, and I have contemporary, I'm a mature worker too, but I have contemporary experience, meaning up to date, as recently as now. I was just recently working a part-time job. I had to go through the whole interview, had to learn some basic, not basic, but some computer applications and all of that, which I did. If I can do it, you can do it. All right. I want to thank you for checking me out. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and I will see you at the top. Bye-bye for now.